Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. We are pleased to be joined by Jacob Topp, the head football coach at South Lyon East. Jacob, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Doing well. So, how is the summer going, and what were you guys up to this week? Because I know that I know every team does something different. Either they get the week off, or they do the practice, or they have some conditioning practices, or they keep the weight room open. How was your summer, and what did you do this week?
It was good. It was busy. Obviously have our 15 contact dates, so had some practices, had some 7-on-7 and O-line, D-line work, working out 3 days a week. So it was good for us. During the down week, we give it off, right? We let the kids take off, and we always do our golf outing the first Saturday of August. So as a staff and as a booster club and all that stuff, we did our golf outing last weekend on Saturday, and then give the kids the week off, and we'll get rocking and rolling here on Monday. We do equipment pass out on Sunday, and then we'll be rolling on Monday with practice.
Yeah. So, what is the outlook for South Lyon East this year?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Hopefully we're going to be in the thick of the conference race and be a playoff team again. I mean, that's ideally where we're probably going to be sitting. But we're going to be young. We don't have a lot of seniors, right? Really small senior class. A handful of those guys have varsity football experience. But we're going to play a lot of juniors and a lot, maybe a sophomore or two, one for sure, maybe two. And it'll be a lot of those juniors. Now, a number of those juniors played and started for us as sophomores, right? So we're not necessarily coming back with no experience. We do have a fair amount of experience returning, but we won't necessarily be a very senior laden team. We playing a ton of juniors, sophomore too, and then our seniors. And so we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, got an idea of who we might be and the identity we might have and who might play, but obviously play the games for a reason. So we'll see how the season shakes out.
Absolutely. Okay, I know you mentioned some of the kids. Now let's talk about them, some of the returners and some of the names that are going to be playing for you guys this year.
Mhm. Yeah, so Jackson Gokenauer is a senior. He's going to be a 3-year starter for us. That's probably the most prominent player in our senior class. We have a handful of other guys that are seniors that have played football for us. Tanner Adam, Aiden Enoch. Um, Trying to think past there. Tanner, Aiden. And then we have a bunch of to be juniors, that started for us last year as sophomores, whether you're talking about Patrick Mazer, Carter Kunis, Ben Frazier, Nolan Parks, Mark Pennington, Chase Hamilton played some varsity football for us in the second half of the year. So we'll play a whole bunch of juniors as well. Um, we we have a good core of guys coming back. I like who we have in terms of who they are, their work ethic, their commitment. And so we'll see, who we have. And then we have a number of juniors that are going to get their first taste of varsity football that I think could be pretty successful. They went 7-2 on the JV and had some guys that were pretty good players. And even in some fifth quarter action when we were able to get them in games, played pretty good. And so played pretty well, excuse me. And so we're excited for those guys to really get their first taste of starting varsity football. But we'll see how it goes week one and week two and see how they develop and see how we are and then move forward from there.
And usually it's week three when coaches really kind of know what they have. So should be an interesting process for everybody. Um, so before we go over the upcoming schedule, I do want to talk about something else that, of course, that doesn't affect this year, but it kind of does. Uh, if you haven't been paying attention or if you've been just doing some other stuff, the Lakes Valley Conference this year will be it's kind of the end of an era as of course you say goodbye to two teams and then next year you welcome five more teams in. So Waterford Kettering and Waterford Mott are leaving the LVC for the OAA after this football season. And then next year, the three Livonia schools will come from the KLA, and the two Farmington schools, Farmington and North Farmington, will come from the OAA to the LVC to make a 12-team conference. So a lot of that starting next year. But Jacob, what's it going to be like to have a 12-team league? Because you've been a charter, South Line East, and has been a charter member since 2017 when the LVC was formed, when the nine teams and Pinckney left the KLA after 2026 at the end of 2016-17.
Yeah, I'm excited to have those five schools join us. I think in a lot of ways it elevates the profile of our league, and I think they fit who we are in terms of the size of school, the competitiveness of athletics. A number of these schools have very good programs and a lot of sports. some of them even competing for state championships. You look at like North Farmington in hoops, Stevenson in hockey, Franklin in football. And so you have really good athletic departments with those schools. It's going to, increase the visibility of our conference, make it more competitive, and hopefully raise the level for everybody, right? Because as you add more competitive teams, hopefully everybody has to, raise their level to compete with them. And so really excited to have them.
Absolutely. And really, just to kind of get more insight into this, I mean, even though you guys are starting the season, in a couple of weeks, but you're also during the season, you guys are also getting ready for next year too, when just setting the schedules out. So what's that process like? Um, as the next year schedule is set kind of during the season this year.
Yeah, we don't really mess with it much during the season. We more so after the season, myself and our athletic director, Greg Michaels, will communicate and look for, throughout the tenure of my time here at the LVC, we have a 9 team league. So you have 8 teams playing and one team as the non-con, and it rotates every week. And so every year, right at the end of the year, we look for a new home, or every 2 years, we look for a new home and home with whoever we're trying to schedule. And so actually this past off season, we picked up a new home and home with Bay City John Glenn, who made the playoffs last year. Good football program. I see what their head coach is doing there, and they're doing a nice job. They have a competent coaching staff, good coaching staff, guys that are obviously invested and work hard at it. A number of good high school football players. And so they're going to be a challenge for us week 1. So we got to go to Bay City and play them here week 1. They're supposed to come back to our place here, the following year. Obviously, with the conference realignment, we'll see how that works out, how that shakes out. Um, but yeah, that's what we have on the docket right now is a home and home with them. And usually that's how it works is myself and our athletic director start looking for the week that we need because we always know what our out of conference week will be with that 9 team conference in advance. And we start looking for, teams that are available that week. The tough thing with our league is, a number of us are, the last however many years had a non-con week 4, 5, 6, 7, and those things can be hard to schedule just because not everybody has an open week that week outside of their conference. But moving forward, we'll see with the conference realignment, with the amount of teams we're adding, we might be able to get a little more consistent in terms of like just everybody being open week 1 or something like that. And that makes scheduling that non-conference a lot easier because 1, 2, and 9 are always sort of the easiest ones to schedule.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I know you just talked about your week 1 opponent. I'll just run through the full schedule real quick. You start off with that non-con week 1, that of course at Bay City John Glenn. And then we get into conference play starting with week 2 on September 5th, home against Walled Lake Central. Week 3, September 12th, home against Lakeland. Week 4, September 19th at Waterford Kettering. Week 5, September 26th, home against Walled Lake Northern. Week 6, October 3rd at Milford. Week 7, October 10th at Waterford Mott. Week 8 will be October 17th, home against Walled Lake Western. And finishing out the regular season, October 24th, week 9 at South Lyon. So, pretty good schedule. The LVC is always a tough conference, and especially as you say goodbye to a couple of teams this season, and it's still going to be a pretty good schedule for you guys.
Yeah, obviously it's sort of unique how it lines up. The back half of the schedule is going to be a tough run for us, right? We start looking at Mott or at Milford, then at Mott, Western at home, and then at our rival against South Lyon at their place. That's a run for us where we have to play some good football there for 4 weeks. If we want to put ourselves in position to make the playoffs, and so hopefully we're up for the test. We'll see how we do. But we'll see how the schedule shakes out, right? I mean, we start on the road, have a pair of home games, and so hopefully starting out, we'll see where we put ourselves in position after the first few weeks. Um, but our conference always is good. You look at the depth and the quality of our conference. I'd argue that it's the best non-Division One football conference in the state.
Yeah.
In terms of we have 3 different teams that have made the state semifinals, since I've been in the conference, I believe. And that's not including, Milford and Lakeland ourselves, which typically are pretty competent, competitive Division II football teams.
Absolutely.
So, it's a really good conference in terms of the depth and the quality that's in our conference. We got some good football teams, and so gonna have to compete.
Absolutely. So next 2 weeks, of course, it all starts Monday. What are the next 2 weeks going to look like for your team, and just kind of just preview where what to expect? Because I know we get the helmets, we got the you got going into pads and and that, but from coaches I've talked to, it's with the additional 15 practices you guys get, people already kind of know what to expect heading into these because you've already been able to get some work in.
Yeah, it's basically a time to basically reinstall, and sort of start back from square one. You get the 2 days of helmets, 2 days of shoulder pads, full on the fifth day, full pads on the fifth day. We split it up where the mornings we sort of do our special teams, lift, film, meet, run, that type of stuff in the morning, and then we do our offense and defense in the evening, trying to stay out of the middle of the day heat, and obviously working at a neighborhood school. All of our kids live, pretty close, right? It'd be a little different. I was at a private school or something like that, but luckily working at a neighborhood school, public school here, all of our guys live pretty close. So we're able to sort of bring them in the morning. They get to go home for lunch and get off their feet, relax, and then bring them back in the evening. So that's how we split up our day. Um, and we've done it since I've been here. I like the schedule. I think it sort of breaks up the day and also keeps us out of the heat a little bit and allows us to do everything we want to do, right? Because we do a lot of film and meeting and install and those type of things. Um, and then we'll do that for the first week. We got picture Saturday morning, picture day always on Saturday. And then we come back the following week, do a few practices, and then we get into our scrimmages. So that's pretty much the standard operating procedure for us during camp. Um, I think it's going well for us over the years. We always sort of look at how we're practicing and doing things a little bit differently, but we've sort of stayed with that schedule, for the most part.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for the time as always, and best of luck to the Cougars this season.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.